Welcome back to the SSL Family Dad channel. I am back after a couple weeks of no videos, no real homesteading videos anyway. And so I thank you guys for your patience, and I want to give you guys an update today on the I guess the log cabin raised bed, or the log raised bed garden. For those of you guys who have been following along, I am actually healing well. Doctor's visit yesterday, they said I could walk on the leg without the brace, and so I got that brace off. And I'm able to, I'm going to be going to physical therapy and things like that, but I don't really think I need that too much. I'm just getting around here and working around the house light duty, and it seems to be healing up pretty good. So thank you guys for your prayers and for just all the support along the way here as I heal and get back to farming, which is the best medicine, I think. So we're going to run through the log cabin raised bed here. Just give you guys an update on what's going on in here. Of course, because of the whole accident and the delays that we've had, I haven't had really any time to come in here and even look at this barely over the last 2 weeks. I haven't really done too much. My wife and kids have been watering it and caring for it, but it needs some attention. And so we're going to get in here and take a look at what we need to do. We're going to cut out some of the crops that are bolting, and we're going to talk all about that and kind of you know, those cool weather crops and what to do with them and how to raise them. And I also want to share with you guys a new thermostat system that I have set up with the fans in the greenhouse, so that I can work on cooling the greenhouse now that we're in the hotter weather. And I will also use that to cool the mini hoop here over the raised bed, you know, during the transition periods. Like for instance, in March and April, I need to heat it during the night, but I also might need to cool it during the day. If it reaches 60 degrees during the day, but then drops down to 30 degrees at night, I need to make sure that, you know, we heat it at night and cool it during the day. So we'll go through all that, and but let's take a look at what we have, what's growing, what's doing well, what's not, and just take a look at the garden. All right, we're starting down at the cool weather end. Carrots doing really well. Now, I was supposed to thin these and never did. Never had a chance to get out here and thin them because of everything that was going on. So they are thick, but I have not weeded this since that last video. What was it, 40 days ago? And look how beautiful that square foot gardening process or method does with these carrots. I think there's one piece of grass growing in there. I mean, this thing is been doing well. You can see we've got some wilting going on there. This needs to be watered. Hasn't been watered in a few days, and the soil's super dry. So we're going to get this watered here after the video. I didn't water it before the video because it lays everything down and everything just kind of looks a mess for a few hours before it perks back up. Lettuce, we did cut quite a bit of this out here and there, and we were using some of it, feeding it to the goats and the rabbits and other things, but it has gone to bolt now. And because it's so hot in here during the day, you know, it's 95 degrees in here right now, and so, you know, it really is not for these kinds of crops. Lettuce needs cool weather and part shade, and that's why this is a great winter crop for us, but does not do good in this weather. So we're gonna cut all this out of here, and it's just too hot for that now. Too late in the season already here in May. Kale doing really well. Now this will grow in hotter weather. It is getting a little bit wilty. It looks like we need to get some water in here today real quick. But this kale's been doing really well. This is a dwarf variety, but it still has grown up pretty tall, I think. So Swiss chard growing here, and again, we're getting a little bit wilty. I can see the strength of the leaves is a little low here, and that's a good sign that they need water. The Swiss chard has been growing really well. It has not bolted. The bolts that you see here are these. This is from the pak choi right next to it. So what is bolting? I always wondered this when I started gardening. Everyone talk about, oh, but these are going to bolt. Well, what it means is with these cool weather crops, like for instance our lettuce here, you see this real tall, what we call a bolt coming off. This is a leaf lettuce. It shouldn't have this big tall stem on it, and a lot of times it'll start to flower and then go to seed. This is the plant's reaction to the warmer weather. So lettuce, you know, growing in cooler climates and cooler weather at the beginning of your year, early in spring, and then late in fall, does really well. But once it starts to get real hot weather and full sun, it will go to seed, and it's the end of the plant's life cycle. At that point, the leaves become bitter. Same thing for like your pak choi and things like that. You see, we've got the bolts here, and we've got these, you know, it started flowering and everything, and so that is really no good for us to eat anymore. The leaves will be just not as tasty. You want these young and tender and cool, and so those crops just don't do as well. Now Swiss chard will handle hotter weather pretty well. and doesn't have as much of an issue with that. And kale will handle, this kale is one of the most diverse or versatile crops you can grow. It grows great in hot weather, cool weather. I've had it last all winter long even, and just, you know, start growing again in the spring. We've got all these beans in here, and I haven't dug through here too much, but we've at least started to get a lot of flowers, but no beans yet, I don't think. These are definitely due after 70 days to start producing for us, and so we should be getting some beans real soon. But again, look through this whole area. I mean, if you can find a weed in here, it's very few. Here's a piece of grass. I have not weeded this but one single time. I just did it after the seeds sprouted up. I went through and weeded. But because of the dense crop, but because of how we planted this with that seed template and that kind of square foot garden method, you just really don't have to worry about weeds once these plants get established. It's wonderful. Now here we had some holes in our potato plants, and so we've got a patch of grass there. That's where a couple potatoes were planted but didn't grow, and so we'll pull those out. But the potatoes are all kind of laying down in here. These will be ready, I would say over the next 30 days, these should die off and probably be ready to harvest. And so we'll take you guys along for those. So here we've got these tomatoes. I'll give you a little bit of an overview here. They are growing up really well and pretty tall. Looks like we must have rolled up some leaves in the plastic here. But the tomatoes are really dense in here, and one of the struggles with square foot gardening with tomatoes is that unless you really have a nice pruning system and you stake them off nice and early, they do tend to get to really bushy, and they take up quite a bit of space in your square foot garden. They generally will take up 4 squares out of a square foot, so 4 square feet for each tomato plant. Now I planted them 1 per square foot, so we're super dense here, but look at no weeds. Now I got to get in here and stake these up. These are all kind of supporting each other, but and they need to get some water. I can see we're getting wilty here. We've got the eggplants growing here. We've got 3 or 4 of them, I think, in here. And first time I've ever grown eggplant, but looks like it's doing pretty well. So we'll get these tomatoes out of the way so that has more space. And the back side here we have our bell peppers. Super dry down here. This is the driest end of the bed. It dries out first, and it really needs some water, so we'll get that taken care of in a minute here. But you can see our tomatoes have kind of overtaken. We've got the peppers are tucked in here, and they're not going to do well if we don't get them out into some sunlight. So we'll get some stakes in here and get these tomatoes moved up and out of the way a little bit. All right, so at the west end of the greenhouse here, I have my 2 fans. I'll put a link in the description to these, actually. These were a product review I did. These were given to me 1 or 2 years ago. And New Air, company that makes all kinds of little appliances, air conditioners and other things. Pretty cool. They've been working really well for me for a couple years, and they're a great sealed outdoor fan. Let me get these turned off though so we can talk about them. So the new little temperature controller I have is pretty awesome. It does both heating, has a heating side and a cooling side. Right now I'm just using the cooling side because we're done with heating. And it also has this nice long lead. You can see it kind of draped here, and here's the end of it. This is the temperature sensor. It's just draped over some rope and stuff. So I put it about halfway up and down the height of the greenhouse. So it's hanging about halfway here at about 5 feet. And so right now it's saying that it's about 91 degrees in here, and as soon as these fans turn off, you can see it's just rising pretty quick. It'll get back up to 100 degrees in here real quick. So the fans alone seem to keep it about 20 degrees cooler than it is outside after they get running for about an hour, especially if I get them running early. But basically this works. You can set a cutoff for heating and for cooling. So if it gets down below 40 degrees, the heating comes on, and then cooling I think I have set at 90 or something like that, and you can set all the parameters. So it'll if it's over 90, it'll bring it back down to like 85, then the fans will shut off, and it'll go down to 40, and it'll heat it back up to 45 or something like that, and then that'll shut off. So really great way to keep the temperature in the greenhouse both hot and cold using my wood boiler and all the heating system I have set up for that. Check previous videos for that, for heating, and then for cooling, just the fans. tomatoes are all staked back away from the peppers, and I think that's going to work out pretty good. Those tomatoes are planted in there way denser than they really should be at 1 per square foot instead of 1 per 4 square feet, but I think they'll do just fine, and we'll get quite a bit of tomatoes out of them anyway. Now the peppers have, well, some water, and they also have some room to grow, as well as the eggplants over there, so I think this will work out pretty good. But everything's watered, and everything lays down quite a bit after I watered, especially since it was so wilted and dried out. And I had forgotten I have cabbage in here. Cabbage growing in here, and I'm probably gonna need to move the kale back and see if I can get some of that pulled out of the way or trimmed back so that cabbage has room to grow, because those will get real big in there if I give them room. I didn't pull all the lettuce out. I know it doesn't look pretty, but I left a bunch of it in there, and I don't like leaving bare soil. I'm going to replant some things in here shortly, but until I do that, I'm just going to leave some of that cover on the soil. The worms will start eating underneath it, and bugs and things like that. It just keeps that soil alive rather than letting it just parch out and dry out and be dead. So I try to leave, and even same thing when I weed. I'll weed and just throw the weeds in here. I know it doesn't look good, but it does the soil quite a bit better. So, and carrots are all laid down from water, but they'll perk back up here in a couple hours. And I don't know how well the carrot harvest is going to be because I didn't thin them out. So unfortunately, we'll probably end up with a bunch of weird looking thin carrots and things, but we'll let it grow out and see what we get. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the, I guess the 70-day update. I was 10 days late on this, and this garden has taken some abuse for sure. Just not being really cared for. I mean, we've kept up with watering it, my wife and the kids have, and I'm so thankful for that. But a lot of things I needed to do out here in the last couple weeks, I just wasn't able to do because of that injury, and it's unfortunate, but we're going to keep chugging along here. And it's time now in Michigan to plant our kitchen garden, so that'll be coming up soon. We'll be out there getting all that planted. I've got wheat that is growing out here already. It's a couple inches tall, and it seems to be doing pretty good. We'll be planting sunflowers, and I'm doing kind of a new field crop type thing this year, and so stay tuned for that as I get back to farming here and walking around and at least using the tractor as much as possible. So it's so crazy how hot it gets in this greenhouse. It's probably only 55 degrees outside, and it's 90 in here. A little trick that I learned with watering the garden, just something I've used around everywhere here. Instead of buying those, it seems all those stupid spray nozzles with all the different adjustable, jet and flat and shower and all that junk. I found this. This was actually part of a Homestead box product. It's a little shower head, and I'll put a link to this on Amazon. What a awesome little shower head. It works really good for watering the garden. It gives a nice, even kind of spray. And then instead of just putting that on the end of the hose, I just use one of these little brass shutoffs. And I got this one on Amazon too, because there's so many, you don't get the plastic ones, they're gonna break, they get stuck, the plastic knobs break off. It does have a plastic handle on it, but it's been pretty tough so far. So I use one of these little shutoffs on the end of the hose and then this shower head, and that way I can easily, just activate that and get everything wet. But that works really good out here for the garden, and that way with that little shutoff at the end of my hose, I can always just change attachment. So when I'm watering, I can throw that shower head on. If I'm out doing something else, I can put a spray nozzle on. I can hook it up to the sprinkler, and I don't have to go and find the spigot in the barn or whatever and turn things off and back on and walk back and forth. Having that shutoff is awesome. I'll also put a link in the description to that little temperature controller that I found on Amazon. It wasn't that expensive compared to all the other greenhouse temperature sensors and all that stuff you can get. I mean, it was super cheap. So I'll put a link to that in the description if you're looking to do a little greenhouse or even low tunnels over your raised beds. You can put a little fan at the end of it, and then instead of having to remember to go out there and move the tunnel walls up and down whenever it's hot out, you could just put that little temperature sensor in there and get a fan going, and it'll just keep it cool in there, and then you don't have to worry about it. So a lot of fun getting back to gardening and videos. I'm gonna stay with gardening, I think, and stay away from the pigs as much as I can. As far as I know, nothing I'm growing can kill me, I don't think, so that'd be good. Don't forget to hit thumbs up on today's video, and if this is your first time to the SSL Family Dad channel, subscribe, follow along, we'd love to have you. Hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified when we put out information or post new content. So, as always guys, thanks for watching. Have a good one.